right, so welcome everyone to the next session on the feedback analysis system. Just as a reminder, put your questions in the chat to be answered by the session speaker later during the Q&A portion of the session. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to our speaker, Akinwumi. Akinwumi, I hand it over to you to kick things off for us.
Well, thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome again to this here Data Camp event. As stated, my name is for the next hour. I will be sharing on an overview of the feedback analysis system. It's an AI ML platform that improves the process of capturing and reviewing public comments associated with federal policies. It also provides insights that drive those same policies aimed at enriching public health and well-being. So we're on to the agenda here, and as I walk through this agenda, we'll state the problem, a brief description of the challenges that FAS is aimed at solving. Then we'll move on to identifying or pointing out how the solution, the FAS solution, meets or resolves those particular challenges. And thirdly, we'll address some of the benefits, efficiencies gained from the FAS system. And finally, we'll do a short demonstration of the solution from the perspective of an analyst or a reviewer. Next slide, please. My objectives for this session is to, like I said, ensure that there is a clear understanding of the type of challenge that's faced with this particular data and with this particular type of review. Secondly is to give a clear understanding of what the benefits that FAS provides in meeting this particular challenge. And then lastly, show the ease of use of that application front end to do this type of analysis. Next slide. Okay, so now we're going into the overview here. If we move on to the problem statement here. So what problem was the FAS feedback analysis system aiming to resolve? Well, first goal here was to deliver a cloud-based AI ML platform that included natural language processing for two primary purposes in this use case. The first was the categorization of policy-based feedback by quickly identifying themes and public sentiments that drove improvements in policies. These policies often impact our population health and well-being. The second was to accelerate the comments review process. Every comment or feedback provided for each policy that goes out required a review and, in most cases, a response. So we accelerate that comment review process and provide insights that were previously difficult to obtain manually by manually reading through each of those comments. To understand these problem statements a little bit better, let's take a look at what the e-rulemaking or federal e-rulemaking workflow actually looks like. Next slide. So the e-rulemaking is a shared service that provides the public with a one-stop access to review regulatory dockets, policies basically, and electronically submit comments on proposed rules or proposed policies and other agency actions from multiple agencies. This system is hosted on the web through a site called, it's a government site called regulations.gov. We'll talk a little bit about that as we move on into the different steps in this workflow. So the first step in the workflow is research and generation of a proposed policy. Once that proposed policy is generated, that proposed policy is then published to a docket made available through the regulations.gov. Regulations.gov is a government website. It acts as an internet portal and document repository that allows members of the public to participate in that rulemaking process for the federal government or of the federal government agencies. Each docket has an open comments period in which the public, or whom you could call stakeholders, can post comments stating their concerns or agreements, recommendations, or sentiment generally regarding the proposed policy. Now, as you can imagine, with the policies open for public comment, all forms of unstructured data, such as raw text, PDFs, OCR documents, attachments, and more are submitted. And over the open comments period, this data can grow from thousands of comments to tens of thousands of comments per policy. The agency analyst or reviewer must then review each of these comments for feedback. This is where the efficiencies offered by the FAS solution are utilized. FAS helps accelerate that review process by using machine learning and natural language processing to deduplicate, extract insights, categorize the information to be reviewed. Once reviewed, the policy proposal can then be updated with relevant public input and then published as a final rule. So the next question is, how does the FAS solution enable acceleration of comments review in this manner? Next slide. The FAS solution, leverages FedRAMP moderate AWS services to provide an integrated system with 6 main components. First component is the data ingestion component. This component is event-driven. It uses serverless architecture, and it enables data of varying types to be ingested from a variety of sources for the purposes of analysis. In the current implementation of the FAS solution, working with CCSQ, this component leverages regulation.gov APIs to ingest text-based comment data. We have also supported data ingestions via CSV files provided as data dumps from structured databases. But the key here is the data is unstructured, text-based data. Then there is the data transformation component. This component transforms ingested data into a scalable, analysis-friendly format for the purposes of efficient machine learning and natural language processing modeling, as well as ensuring performant queries and filtering of ingested data to support analysis of that data over and above regular machine learning analytics. Then there's the data storage component. This is the core piece of the solution here. This component provides a flexible, scalable store for a variety of data types to include the ingested data for analysis, processed or transformed data, and the analytics results. These analytics results, as we would see later on, are visualized through our user interface and also leveraging AWS dashboarding technologies. The fourth component here is the model development component. This is a bit of a cutout out of the FAS solution in that it is a platform, an open platform that enables data scientists to build these models, basically prepare, build, and train these ML models. It is serverless in nature, and it is scalable. Once those models are created, those models are then moved into the execution mode. In the execution component, there is a provision of a one-click deployment of these trained models into production. This deployment also leverages AWS services such as SageMaker to execute those models against data that have been ingested. The last component I'll focus on here is the insight visualization and analysis component. Like I said before, this leverages AWS QuickSight, which we've heard 2 sessions back. This component of the FAS solution provides summarized dashboards of model results with the ability to filter. I'll show that in the demonstration in a few. In addition, the FAS solution provides drill downs into the ingested data for the purposes of quick review through a human-centered design web interface. This interface provides and supports authentication and authorization leveraging HARP. Each of these 6 components leverages AWS services as stated previously. Some of these services that I have not mentioned already include CloudWatch for logging. I talked about the data storage, which leverages AWS S3. SageMaker I talked about in terms of model development as well as model execution. We leverage Glue and Athena for ETL and querying. and a variety of other network components that are used within AWS to ensure that this is a cloud-enabled solution. Now let's move into a summarized view of the models available within the FAS solution. Next slide, please. The FAS solution has 6 key models. Six key models custom built to support the needs of reviewing public comments regarding proposed policies. Each of these models can be adapted to support other unstructured data that require similar summarizations or categorical insights. But again, for the purpose of the FAS solution, the use case we had was policy data and comments related to that. Let's look at some of the models that are part of this solution. Our themes model is an unsupervised model which groups word or phrase embeddings to create a high-level thematic view. What does this mean? We take all the comments that we get and using phrases and words within those comments, we're able to identify themes for each of those comments. Again, the goal is to speed up the review process for the analyst. Our stakeholder type model is a supervised model. It uses a sequence of classification and entity recognition models to identify stakeholders and submitter information from the posted comments. This becomes relevant in the prioritization of those comments, identifying if these comments come from large entities or if they are citizen-based individual comments. And you'd see where that plays a role in similarity later on. Our sentiment model is a supervised model. It's a text classification model that identifies and groups comments by submitter sentiment. Sentiments provided are really just 2 classifications. It's either an agreement or a disagreement. And we group that and show not just the statement in the comment that shows that disagreement, but highlight that in the contents of the comment itself. Our recommendation and clarifications model is a supervised, also text classification model that enables the reviewer to extract public insights in the form of recommendations or clarifications. Again, feeding back into enhancing those policies based on the comments that the public provided. The duplicate detection model is an unsupervised model. This leverages vectorization and similarity calculations to group similar comments, thereby making the analyst more efficient in their review and in the feedback process, how quickly they can respond to these messages. The topic identification model is an unsupervised model that uses a framework to map proposal subwords within the comments to data identified within the proposal or within the policy itself as topics. So we take the policy, we identify topics from those policy, and then map, based on subwords, pieces of the comment to those topic headings, thereby organizing that data for topics. Now let's highlight some of the mentioned and not mentioned features of the FAS solution before we identify some of the derived value. Next slide, please. Now, looking at the features of the FAS solution at a broad stroke, the first feature here is the authentication and authorization feature. It is integrated, allowing us to use HARP or EUA IDs to authenticate into the system. Today, when I do log in, I will show using the HARP credentials. Since we have our system in AWS, this uses an integration with an AWS service known as AWS Cognito. So the FAS solution itself does not hold any user credentials, but we leverage the IDM systems that do hold those credentials, as well as the roles that are provided within those systems. The second feature I talked about was the automated data ingestion. This is an event-driven process that allows us to simply place configuration information into S3 to kick off the data ingestion process from regulations.gov using the APIs that I talked about earlier on. Also, the ML and NLP insights are derived in line as that data is ingested based on the trained models that comes from our model development environment. Filtering of this data based on not just the text of the data, which is a regular free text search, but also filtering this data based on the results of the analytics done. So we're able to identify sets of unique comments based on the groups and models created. We're able to search by or filter by topics identified from the policy documentation as well as the comments. We're able to filter by categorization extracted from not just the policy, but also the comments. We're able to filter by location. We're able to filter by stakeholders. We're able to filter by derived results that come from recommendations or clarifications or sentiments as discussed earlier. Also, there is a review tracking or flagging feature that exists within FAS. This enables a user workflow for reviewing these comments as they come in, marking them as reviewed or flagging them, as well as downloading from the user interface subsets of this data for the review. There are various reports and dashboards that I would show as we go through this. But the essence of these various reports and dashboards are to help summarize the results of the model as we go through them. So it comes with a combination of different types of charts or pie charts that show things like similarities or the groupings of topics that may exist and how many comments come from those particular topics, or categories listed within the actual comments. We'll see that in a few. The last piece in terms of features of FAS is that it is a 508 compliant. It is a 508 compliant solution that we've tested to ensure that all users can make use of this particular application. And lastly, we have achieved an authority to operate within the cloud this particular solution, vetting the different services that we have and the different technologies that we are using. Next slide, please. Over the last few months, the FAS solution has been used to analyze well over 50,000 comments across 10 dockets. Now, dockets are policies that have been sent out. These dockets have been ingested so far into the FAS solution. Of the 50,000 or so comments that have been ingested, the FAS solution has identified about 13,000 of those comments to be unique. It's about a quarter of the ingested data, meaning about 3/4 of the comments ingested are either duplicates or similar comments. The question is, how does this arise? For the comments that are submitted through regulations.gov, these comments are submitted by organizations who have patrons within those organizations, and they simply send this information out to their patrons, and the patrons put that information in as their own. So it's very easy to have one comment that's simply duplicated with the name or the name of the submitter changed based on that. So we have a large number of comments to reduce, and FAS helps reduce that by identifying similar and duplicate comments. Now let's take a moment and review or compare the effort it takes in the manual review of the FAS of the data versus the FAS approach. Next slide, please. So on the previous slide, I talked about reduction, basically effort reduction, comment review reduction. I talked about a 70% reduction based on the number of comments that we've received over the last year and over the 10 dockets that we've reviewed versus how many of that is unique. Part of the steps or part of the efforts required to review these comments include by topic to ensure that each topic is addressed or comments are addressed based on the topic that they are associated with. Estimating about an hour per comment and having about 50,000 comments to review over the period of a year. Looking across these 10 dockets, doing those calculations, we came up with about approximately 24 FTEs to get this effort done manually. That's based again on about an hour to review a comment and over the course of a year, dealing with about 50,000 comments. With the FAS solution, being that it's an automated solution, the machine does this all at once with no FTEs in that scenario. Processing of duplicate comments. So I talked about topics. Let's talk about processing duplicate comments here. So of course, as you'll expect, in the processing of duplicate comments, you still need definitely FTEs in that case because somebody has to read the comments once they've been processed. But using the same type of logic of an hour per comment and looking at the example I gave earlier on with about a quarter of the comment being duplicate or unique in what we found, Doing that particular math, we have about 17 FTEs to review duplicate comments across all those dockets. But with the reduction that comes through the FAS system, the amount of comments that they need to review is now reduced. When you subtract the comments that are identified as duplicate from the comments that are unique, you come up with about 10,000 comments for the analyst to review. And again, if we do that same calculation for an hour per comment to review that, that comes down to about 4 or 5 FT. Reduction rate there is about 70% in that processing of duplicate comments in terms of hours. Let's look at the search. Just the search feature. Say I'll pick on just one of them. Just ability to find or find target words within particular comments. Just reading through each comment could take to find or search for a particular word could take about 30 minutes, maybe. If you use a search and replace in a Word document, you still have to download and then do that. Within the FAS system, this is a matter of seconds. Once we ingest this particular data, we provide features on top of that to allow you to search that data, ingest that data within our systems. By typing in a few key phrases into the user interface, the analyst is quickly able to reduce that data and search for specific terms within the comments that have been downloaded. Now, with that said, let's move on to our next slide. So at this point, we're going to go into a demonstration of the FAS solution. So let's get a screen share going here. All right. So first things first is I'll log into the FAS solution. And first thing we see or encounter here is a banner page, just a simple regular government banner page here. But two things I want to draw attention to here is one, we provide feedback. We allow for our users to provide feedback on the system. This feedback goes through a process that comes back to the developers of this system so we can improve it. Interestingly enough, we have a feedback analysis system. And we are reviewing feedbacks on our own system as well. Then we go into the login feature. Now, at this point, this is where you have that integrated authentication process between the IDM systems and the cloud using AWS Cognito. So in this particular case, we've sent a response now or request to the IDM for authentication. So I will simply log in as myself. This supports a two-factor authentication. So as this comes up, I will pull my code up on my text here and type that in. And now we are in the feedback analysis system. I'll talk a little bit more about this first page as we go through, but just some key things I want to point out on this first page. The dockets that you're looking at, I mentioned 10 dockets that have been ingested over the last year. The dockets you're looking at are those dockets. And we do provide certain summary information once we ingest those dockets. Summary information includes things like the title, which is all searchable text, the number of documents within each of those dockets. Documents in this case are policies or modification of those policies placed within that docket until the closing period before you get a final policy posted. And we also have the number of comments that come in. And earlier on, I talked about thousands or tens of thousands of comments. If I scroll down on this particular page, we could see here's a particular docket right here that has to do with a payment system that had well over 18,000 comments. And we could scroll down and see just more of those, just in terms of the dockets that we have ingested. We have worked with three different organizations within CCSQ to get their dockets that they're interested in and begin to review those. But before I go too far into this page and start to click on different things in this page here, I want us to take a look at an overview or a summary view of the results of the analytics. So let's go to the summary view here. And as we look at the summary view, this is a dashboard that shows or depicts results or some of the models or analysis that I talked about earlier on. I talked about categorization. I talked about topics. I talked about searching based on sentiment or searching based on duplicate comments. So let's see here. Let's pick, just make sure everyone can see my screen. There you go. All right. So in this particular docket that we're investigating here or looking at, the analyst now has the ability to, one, see the different categories where comments are coming in. So looking at this particular docket, we could see here the majority of the comments here, or the category here, comes from healthcare providers for this particular docket. Across the way from that, we can also look at the trend of posted comments to regulation.gov for this particular docket. And as we look over the period of time this docket was open for comments, we see it normally starts about really low. And then towards the end of the closeout, we have a quick ramp up of a whole bunch of comments, or a variety of comments that jump in at that point in time. And the FAS system enables and allows for the ingestion of those comments when they come in. And so we're able to scale up or scale down based on the number of comments that are coming in. At the bottom here, before I go to the filters at the top, at the bottom here, we quickly see these comments grouped by topics. These are topics based on the policy itself and the number of comments associated with each of those topics. This is one of those models that I talked about earlier on. And then finally, we have this comments broken down by states. So to just simply identify which states find or respond most to a given docket versus another. So in this particular case, just looking at the state, looks like Tennessee here was really interested in this particular docket. Scrolling up, just looking at some of the filters that we have here. Right here, we quickly identify the count, number of comments for this particular docket. So about 6,000 comments on here. And we can always filter based on these different categories just to reduce the data that we're looking at. Just picking one of these ones here. Let's see, it's a good one. Yeah, so that's an example of filtering there. This only has 2 comments associated with it, but this particular interface gives the analyst an opportunity to drill down into this data without having to read through downloaded comments. They can quickly analyze this data and gain insights or derive insights from what they're looking at. Moving off of this here, let's go on to the details page. So I'll go back to the comment list here, and I will select a different comment, different docket here. So let's do docket select here. Let's find one that's associated with the same one we just reviewed on the dashboard. First thing I want to identify on this comment list page here is we carry along on this page a quick description of the title of that particular docket that's been reviewed. This is feedback that we got in our HCD process in creating this particular interface. The end users were really interested in being able to follow along what docket they are reviewing. So we have that feature in place. Right under it is the number of filtered comments. Now, filtered comments really mean unique comments. So this particular docket, when we saw it on the previous page, had about 6,000 or so comments. But when we filtered that out, the unique comments come out to be about 4,000 comments in that particular case. So about 60% reduction in that scenario. We have a comments filter box here that allows us to filter the comments that we have ingested. Of course, we default this to the unique comments. You can always reduce, you can always see all the comments by simply unchecking that and filtering that out and applying. As you can see, we're back to 6,000. So let's put that back on. And as I stated before, we are able to filter based on the different types of models that we have. A good example of that is our submitter organization. So if I check this to identify all the submitter organizations, so this, and I apply, let's apply this right here. And I apply that, you see this little active filters at the top that lets me know that I've applied that. And now I'm filtering this set of comments based on where a submitter organization was found. And if I scroll down on this, I'm able to see all the different organizations that have submitted comments for this particular policy. Let's look at a few more filters before we dive into some of those comments. Another filter on here is the stakeholder type. So who are the stakeholders for these particular comments? We are able to identify, in this case, at least today, provider stakeholders. So from the list below, let's come down here. From the list below, we could see that there are a series of stakeholder types. And in some cases, it is a machine learning model. In some cases, none were available. None could be identified from the comment in terms of a stakeholder. So if I filter just by that there, let's see if we can even reduce this a little further here. So we go from 500 there to about 102 comments. So as we see, we're giving the analyst that opportunity to continue to reduce the data so they can focus in on what they want to actually review. Let's add another filter onto that, settings of care. We've heard a lot today about nursing homes and nursing homes. So let's use that as an example here. Let's select a skilled nursing facility here. So let's do this one, let's do this. Again, we apply that particular filter. We see a reduction. Now we're down to only about 75 filtered comments, and on goes. So we have the same for recommendations. By checking these different boxes, we're able to filter down to just comments that have recommendations in them, or that have clarifications in them, or that address one kind of sentiment or another. Let's scroll down here and perhaps drill down into one of these comments that we're looking at on here. So as you can see, as I scroll down on this here, just to point out a few things along the way on this scroll down, we have not just the information or title information. We also have who the submitting organization is, the type, and of course the what's called the setting of care. But in addition to that, we have these flags on the side, a review or a flag that lets us know, or that lets the analyst identify a comment that they have already reviewed or that needs to be flagged for further review. Let's click this one. So on this particular page here, this is the comments detail page. And of course, as the name indicates, with the comment detail, we have all the information that we selected from the previous page in terms of information related to this particular comment. So we could see the submit organization matches what we had previously. The type is a provider, setting of care as we selected, and as is on this particular comment. And we are also able to pull the category that this particular comment is associated with and the topics that it maps to. And we're able to go back and forth on the individual comments by simply clicking on next, or by clicking on previous. I clicked on the last one, but I click on previous to get the previous one, or I click on next again just to go back to the last one that we're on. All right, and like I said before, we carry along just that description of the title at the top. Scrolling down, let's look at what some of these different things mean. So with every docket or every policy in a given docket, we often find that the first attachment that's in there is simply a reference to that docket or a reference to see other attachments. In this particular case, the first attachment is exactly that. It's simply a title stating what this tag for this particular docket of this particular policy. So let's look at one of the other attachments under it. We'll look at attachment 1. By clicking on this particular checkbox here, oh, sorry, that checkbox was a flag. Oh, I've already clicked on the flag. I went too quick on that one. All right, let's uncheck that flag. We'll come back to the flag in a moment. Now I've selected this particular attachment. And as you can see, it's a PDF file. Where did all my modeling go? What's going on? Well, I talked earlier on about the data transformation. And I said that we transform that data into a form that we can use for analytics. This is a good example of that. This particular attachment includes the comment required or the comments posted by this particular stakeholder. But it's a PDF form. We need to extract the text out of that for the purposes of modeling. Well, we've done that within the FAS system and give an opportunity to show that by simply clicking on the button that says show text and modeling information. So now we're able to see the text related to that particular attachment. We're looking at that text now. As we go through this particular text, switched and pull that out and put it in our data store, run all our models against it, we see the results of the model at the top. So let's look at some of these results. We'll start with the recommendations. Are there any recommendations provided in this comment? Well, the answer to that is yes. One recommendation was provided. Well, I don't see that on here, so how do I know that? For those who read fast, you could see right there, it says, I strongly recommend. That sounds like a recommendation, but we pull that out through modeling as well. we're able to identify all the recommendations within that given text and quickly itemize that for the analyst. Not just itemize that, but also highlight that in the actual text. The same goes for some of the other results of models here. So let's take a look at agreements, for example. Agreements let's do agreements first. This will help us continue to provide quality of care as we hire more staff and make occupancy gains. Sounds like somebody really likes this. So where in the comment does it say that? Again, we scroll down, we have that piece. Oh, we have that piece highlighted. No, that piece is just pulled out at the top for summarization. Same thing goes in for disagreements. So when we do disagreements, we can list all the different disagreements. And each of these lines right here are sentences that are available within this particular text. So we pull those sentences out to let you know what the agreement or disagreement was. The last piece of this is identifying themes. So in this particular comment, what are the general themes that pop up? By pulling on this drop-down list here, we're quickly able to see just the 3 key themes that we identified. So let's pick just one of them here. So let's look at health. And once we pick on that, we are able to see the thematic grouping for this particular theme. And now this is a statement that comes again from the text in here. And we take nouns from that to generate that thematic grouping to identify again themes or general sense within the comments. Now, let's go on to the review tag, review flag that I talked about earlier on, which is a workflow process for the analyst. So let's just check. Let's check this one right here. And now that I've marked that for review, we'll go over to my selections. Let's see what I've selected out here. Okay. So now I want to see all the ones that I've checked for review. I click on that. Did I not save that? Oh, sorry. I clicked on flagged before. So I have to go back and click on reviewed. So this is the one I just flagged. This was the comment ID I flagged just a few minutes ago. And you saw I flagged attachment 1. For the benefit of clarity here, let's just take a step back and look at that again. So I have that one flagged. I'll flag the second one. So this is the flag right here. Once I click on it, it's flagged. If I uncheck it, I am quickly asked if I'm sure I want to unflag this. I'm going to answer yes. So now I have flagged attachment 2. The system tracks who flags what. So this has my user ID on it. And now if I go back to my selections and I click on flagged, I'm able to see attachment 2, which is what I flagged. Okay. So one more thing here I wanted to show was the review, to be able to see when we check something for review, does it show up on this same page? So let's go back to our comments. Yeah, right there. That's our comments. Yeah. And let's check this for review. So again, I've marked that as checked for review. If I go back to my selections again, and I select which ones are marked for review, that particular comment ID shows up. We are also able to support downloading of this particular information. So in this case, it has attachment 0. So let's switch back and just go to the flagged ones here and also add that in and see if we can download this. So with this, I'm able to download the information in this particular table by clicking on our download button. This pops up a message and allows me to download this data in form of a CSV for further review. So now I have my reviewed and flagged comments that I can download into a CSV format and use something like Excel, for example, to continue to navigate through that particular data, that particular data set. Let's cancel out of that. Let me go back here and uncheck all my flags here just to make sure. So uncheck that, yes. And uncheck this, yes. Okay. And let's return back to our docket select page. And we're back where we started. So at this point, this kind of closes out the demonstration for this. So I'll open it up for questions.
All right. So we did get quite a lot of questions in the chat. So the first one was, what technology is being used for NLP?
Good question. For NLP, we use Python models. Spacey, I think I'm not the key data scientist on the team, but From what I remember, the data scientists on the team, they use Spacey, they use scikit-learn, they use AWS, and they also use Jumpstart, which is an AWS tool that allows us to review the black box that are these models.
Great, thank you. Another question was, how are the FAS results tested for errors in analysis?
The results are reviewed, I believe, using Jumpstart. So I will probably transition that question over to my data scientist on the team here. They use model validation techniques. I think he would probably be best to express. Thank you.
Yes, yeah. So I think model validation techniques as well as final QA checks in the application while testing after deployment. So QA plus model validation techniques.
Great, thank you. So next question was, what do you think of using NLP to review the actual proposals?
So in terms of proposals, so comments are like they come from reg.gov. So there's a certain formatting which is pretty much standard in reg.gov. So but on the proposal side, it's a different set of data. So the things that we are using right now, they can be applied, but they definitely need to be tuned to be applied on the proposals. So that would be just a tuning or optimization that we need to conduct if it needs to be applied to proposals or any different kind of data source.
Great, thank you. So next question was, any idea about the accuracy of the manual efforts? If greater, have there been legal challenges to the use of FAS for this purpose?
So in terms of manual accuracies, I would say in range of like plus to minus 10%. And I mean, this is a continuous learning system. So as we conduct the checks, these things kind of keep improving. The models are retrained based on the checks that we get, and we keep figuring out the solutions on how we can reduce those errors. And about the legal challenges, I'm sorry, as a data scientist, I don't know. Maybe JR can answer that. But yeah.
No, unfortunately, I can answer. There hasn't been any legal challenges that I'm aware of to the use of FAS for the purposes of this analysis, primarily because the data that we're using is public, I would assume. In terms of the accuracy of manual efforts, these are derived accuracy based on how much time it takes to actually review a comment manually.
All right, thank you. So next question, what happens with the other or unmapped comments? Are they reviewed for relevancy?
Yes, all comments are available for review. So no comments are removed. In this particular case, using the FAS system, it's a drill down or summarization system. So you're still able to get the unmapped comments and review them as well. Based on the analysis process or feedback process itself, all comments are meant to be reviewed and all comments are meant to be responded to.
Thank you. So next question, are agreements reviewed for context? It could be that they were referring to what they wrote in a previous sentence, and it may not necessarily be a true agreement. And I did get another question similar about that. I think the question is referring to making sure that the system is taking into account the entire context. How does the FAS system manage that?
So I would say continuous retraining and continuous improvement. So models are mostly work out of the data that's fed into them, and they learn based on what data we have made them understand. So it's if any other scenario comes in which it's not able to identify, it identifies it differently, that data will be picked up and kind of retrained into the model. And there are various ways to penalize models based on, okay, you can train the models to ignore something also. So those are scenarios which we kind of, once models are deployed into production, we collect the feedback and optimize the models to make sure we kind of match or go towards the direction of what's needed or what's helpful.
Great, thank you. So I think we have time for one more question before we go on break. This question is, what happens with any comments that are flagged?
The comments that are flagged are tracked persistently in our data store, and those comments are then made available through the UI. Like I said earlier on, you can look at the comments that are flagged for further review, and you can download those comments to address them as well. So they're not removed from the system. I'm not sure if that answered the question.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and with that, I think it's time for us to go on break. I know there were a couple more questions in the chat, but we'll work with the FAS team afterwards to get those answered and posted. So special thanks to the FAS team for coming on board today and sharing with us more about your system. At this point, let's go into a 9-minute break before our next session, which will be on utilizing qualitative analysis.